Thank you everyone for joining this life interrupted webinar on how to upskill and reskill during COVID-19. My name is Abdel Mazar Shefi. I'm a 2014 engineering grad, a partner at Quantum Lead, and a co-founder at Upstart Ed. Today, I'm here as the Vice President of the McGill Young Alumni Association. Our association's aim is to connect, support, and engage McGill students and graduates of the last decade. To achieve these goals, we've been running a series of webinars to support career planning and recruitment in the time of COVID-19. One of the most important skills you can learn is how to learn. That has never been more important than today, with the rapid pace of technological advancement and the disruption caused by a global pandemic. Upskilling, reskilling, learning, these are all topics very close to my heart in the work that I do, and I'm extremely pleased to announce the following speakers and panelists who are here today to share their insights as career coaches, recruiters, and professionals. We have leading the charge once again, Peter Krabalian. Hi, Peter.
Hi, everyone.
Peter is the co-founder of Plus5XP, a startup that helps young professionals simulate 5 years of experience through workshops and one-on-one coaching. He's also an industry advocate and technical specialist for McGill's Masters of Management and Analytics program. We also have fellow McGillians with us, starting off with Lauren Duval. Hi, Lauren. Lauren is the talent acquisition manager for Slalom, a Montreal consulting firm that helps clients transform their businesses through emerging technology. She has spent the last few years helping grow tech companies and putting Montreal on the map for amazing talent. Thank you for being with us, Lauren. Finally, we have Winston Wang. Hi, Winston. Winston is also a co-founder of Plus5XP and a product manager at Autodesk, specializing in advanced analytics. He holds a master's degree in aerospace engineering and has experience in many fields, including business analytics and recruitment. So, just as we're about to start, I'd like to mention that you can submit questions to the speakers at any point in time in the webinar using the chat function and the Q&A function of the webinar. We will be having a Q&A session following Peter's and Winston's presentation. So please keep submitting your questions. Until then, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to pass things over to Peter. Peter, it's all yours.
Thanks, Abdel. I should be sharing my screen. Just everyone let me know if everything's all right. So, hi everyone. We're going to get started and we're going to talk about, how to adapt by upskilling and reskilling in today's world. So, I looked over your questions from registration, and many of you seem to have problems all over the place. You're all from different domains. I saw a bunch of people from sciences. I saw a bunch of people from business, but people from engineering. It's all over. And many of you were really asking questions regarding of what you guys perceived as weaknesses. And that's one of the things we want to talk about today. So with that said, when there are no rules, which is after COVID, there are no rules now, no matter in the business, customer value is key. And I'm going to put that in brackets because the customer, many of you understand as the customer as being externally from your company. The customer could also be inside your company as well, and we're going to get into that. So before we can tell you what to learn, we want to make sure that we change your perspective on what is your job and exactly what is important to you, and especially what is a customer-centric view of what you do. So now let's look at your foundations. So like I was saying, a lot of you are coming from all over the place, and this is something I want to showcase in different ways from different areas. So we have something that's called a SIPOC that we use a lot at work. I know Winston in project management in tech companies, they call it the customer journey, but it's pretty much the same thing. So a SIPOC is a supplier, input, process, output, customer. And it's just to map out all the flows of it. So we have here, we have a chemistry or a chemical, situation here where you have DuPont as their supplier, chemicals are the input, SC Johnson is the process, you make Windex as the output, goes to the customer. Samsung Semiconductors goes to NVIDIA, graphics processor to Apple, marketing, customer requirements, Rolls-Royce engines to Airbus. This happens all the time, and no matter what business, no matter what domain, no matter what field you are in, this process, this framework always works. And I want to make sure that you're understanding this because we're going to do this in a micro level of how it gives you value. So when you look at the supplier, I want you to think of who is the internal and external entity that delivers input to you. Now you can look at it in a school way on the job, because I know some of you are looking for jobs. I know some of you are already working. If you're working, you have people giving you data, you have people giving you material, you have people giving you anything of input to allow you to do your job. Those are your suppliers on the job. Regarding input, like I said, that is whatever they're giving you to make your job easier. Your process, this is one of the things I really want you to look. You don't really have to look at it as a process. You can actually look at it as a job or as a company. And we're going to get a little bit more into that on the company aspect a little bit later. And then you have to look at it as what is your output and how does that give value to your customer? Now, the reason why I want to put this framework in front of your faces right now is because when you're trying to upskill and reskill, all you're really trying to do is the last three. You're trying to see how your output to your customer can get rebalanced and have new skills to give that better or give more value. This is something I really think that's paramount for us to understand. So like I've said at the bottom, once you do that, you ask the questions of how they connect, how each one of the five connect, where are the weaknesses, and how you can deliver more value. And that is the key aspect of what we're going to be talking about today. So Winston, I'm going to give you the floor now.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Just taking on what Peter is saying, I'm building on it, is that, how would you look at the new world, the post-COVID world, and see how do you position yourself so that you are still creating value for your customer? And when I say customer, I mean like anyone you're creating value with, right? This could be, the company you're working with, the department you're working with, or even you can think of the hiring manager when you apply the job as a customer, because he or she is looking for a service that you're providing. Quick analysis of the post-COVID world, what has changed and what hasn't, right? So there has been a lot of things on the news that saying, oh, this is like a black swan event, everything's disrupted. There are no rules anymore. And in some sense, that's true. And a lot of companies are struggling, but in some sense, in a sense, nothing has really changed if you think about it really hard, right? So Peter, maybe you want to do the animation for me. So we're gonna break it down like very high level, very general. This is very abstract. What has changed and what happened, right? So Peter, so on the change side, so if you think about it, right, like we said, customer. When I say customer, I mean like people downstream from you that you're creating value with have new needs. And at a macro level, a lot of the companies are searching for this, right? Like they're saying, what are the customers want? How do we serve them better? How do we create value? How do we maintain that advantage? You'll see that like the companies, brick and mortar retail got disrupted. A lot of the supply chain industries got disrupted. Pharma got disrupted, and so on, right? So the other thing is that how we create value has changed. So like people are working from home, working remotely, collaborating remotely. So you have to adapt on the how as well. So what this means is that both the what and the how has changed. And then a quick takeaway there is that there's a high demand in digital tools in terms of how do we collaborate and how we interact with the customer. Just think of Amazon, right? Amazon, when you interact, like Amazon's actually thriving right now. Why? Because they have the digital tools already in place. They don't have to build it after COVID. But the thing is, what hasn't changed? The thing that hasn't changed is no matter what, the businesses are still looking to create value and gain a competitive advantage over their competitors. This has been the game before COVID, and this is the game after COVID. It's just what you're looking for is like there's a new path to achieve that now. So what you want to think about is that you want to always anchor yourself on what hasn't changed, right? Like from your perspective as well. When you go look for a job, you always want to see I'm creating value for my customers. In this case, the hiring manager, the hiring team, the hiring company, and then you also want to think about how that company create value for the customer in the post-COVID world, and then you can say if I can upskill and reskill accordingly for that need. And then, believe it or not, if you come with this mindset and you go into an interview, you can say, hey, I think your company has to pivot in this direction to serve your customer. Therefore, I learned these new skills to help you do better. That is actually a huge win in the eyes of the hiring manager. That'll give you a leg up over your competitors as well. So it's really thinking about that. Of course, this is a general takeaway, but it's never a better time to go digital, in the sense that a lot of the traditional companies are accelerating the usage of data and digital tools more than ever. They use this to understand their customers, streamlining their supply chains, and innovate new products and services. It's a good time to invest in digital tools. Peter at the end will actually talk concretely about what some of our recommendations are. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so I want to step up level a little bit in terms of if you think about what has COVID sort of accelerated the world in the sense that it's not that COVID has changed the world per se, but COVID has accelerated the path of, I would say, the convergence of disciplines and the future of innovation. So this is a chart that is actually written by a paper that was published in 2016, and actually it's also on Netflix. I would say documentary. But what it describes is sort of the convergence between the culture and nature, between the production and the prediction side of things, right? So there's the four quadrants of art, science, engineering, and design. So basically, what this means, high level, is that these disciplines, as you see in the real world as well as in university, they're sort of their own departments and their silos. And but in more and more in the how we innovate and how we create in the future is sort of a cycle, and this is what the cycle of creativity and implies, right? So there's no beginning to the end, but I'll start with the science part, right? So the science generally is discovery. You understand nature through experimentation, the hypothesis, and so on, right? So you basically take information out there in nature and convert that into knowledge. Then once you have the knowledge, it becomes engineering. Like the humans generally look at this, say, hey, I have knowledge. I know Newton's law of physics, and I want to convert that into mechanical engineering. So I want to take that and then build something out of it. Then you have utility. After utility, so you have something that's functional, right? But then for something functional, it might change behavior, right? Because people used to walk around before there were cars, but now we have cars. So behavior has changed. So how people interact with each other has changed. So that's design. But what's really interesting is that how you close the loop, right? You want to take that behavior and transmit back into information. And I really want to use the iPhone as the example over here. Is that iPhone is like a perfect design and then sort of change people's behavior. But it is designed in such a way that people are consuming this in new mediums. Like for example, like people are building new stuff on top of Instagram and other apps that is changing how people perceive the world and perceive culture, and then that's actually generating new information. And then we can use that to generate new science. New science in terms of, like, for example, how people collaborate remotely is a new branch of science right now. Like people are trying to study psychology of like virtual collaboration, right? So that's actually, so this is a concentric, this is a circle that feeds on itself in terms of ever the progress of humanity, if you think of it that way. And this all sounds a little bit abstract to you, and it is, right? Like, but the point that I'm trying to take away is that more and more in the world, you want to understand, instead of understanding one discipline. Like for example, I'm an aerospace engineer. I study engineering. I think a lot of you guys would agree that in university, especially for the people coming on this in this seminar right now, most of you have been exposed to it, the right side of this, which is that you're either in a science type of field or in an engineering type of field, which tells you how the world is and how you can build useful things out of it. But what's in the new world in terms of reskill and upskill is that you probably want to diversify yourself into multiple quadrants in here, in the sense that, and also you want to collaborate, build a network with people in different quadrants, in the sense that then you become an effective team and you can innovate. And you'll see all the successful companies are actually doing that. So yeah, and by the way, this is a very high level divide in terms of, I'm sure there are exceptions, but for the most part, university give you the right in a sort of like here is what we learned from the nature, from science, and here's how we can, all the physical laws and in terms of how we can build it, right? But they didn't ever taught you how you can turn that, into a useful design for, like in the sense of UI UX, and how that actually translates into changing human behavior. And you want to study that as well. So that's sort of a new emergence there. Yeah, next slide, please. So segue into something more concrete. And the takeaway of this slide is basically to say that in the future, and COVID accelerated this reality. COVID didn't create this reality. COVID just means that it's moving much, much faster. Is that you want to generalize more and specialize less. And I know this is a slightly controversial topic. And when we were growing up, our parents always say that you're like a jack of all trades, master of none, that kind of thing. But that's more and more increasingly not the case, in the sense that we know that innovation is increasingly multidisciplinary. You need a team, multiple skill sets and multiple teams of people with multiple skill sets for you to do that well. Another thing, just more practical thing, is that if you learn a little bit about the field of AI, AI is actually progressing very well right now. A lot of the tools that you use right now, you don't know they're AI, but they're actually AI. For example, Siri on your phone, right? So what this means is that narrow AI is actually doing very well in replacing a lot of the specialization tasks. They're very well defined. There's a rule book, so AI can train a model on it, and then that can replace it. So for the sake of job security and then future-proof your skill set, you want to be a generalist, because general AI is going to come at the very end. They're going to come eventually, but they're going to come at the very end. And also, Peter and I'm sure Lauren as well can speak to this in terms of recruiting world. If you can thrive in multiple domains, assuming you can speak in multiple language to, like, for example, speak engineering, speak sales, speak marketing, speak finance, speak supply chain, then companies are going to seek you out, because that's where the value is in terms of creating in the company. That's where you're building the bridge among different sector, different aspect of the company. On the flip side of it, right? Like you can see, if you want to specialize, you actually have to master a set of knowledge, and that knowledge is actually in the past, pre-COVID. How much is that still relevant? It's hard to know. So do you want to really start mastering on something that's already obsolete? Going forward, all the emerging fields such as analytics, AI, and VR and AR, there are no rule books. Like for example, like I know Lauren and Peter will probably laugh when I say this, when you probably see some job descriptions that you need 10 years of experience of a tool that came out like 6 months ago. No rule books. That's a false sense of security. That's another reason you can't even specialize if you wanted to. The third part is that once you specialize, you become a commodity. They'll measure you by certification. You'll see, oh, this person has 5 certifications, the other person only has 4, so I'm going to hire that person. It's a never-ending game. Yeah. So that's another thing. You don't want to commoditize yourself. You want to become, you want to create unique value that's not replicable. I want to speak from, because I came from an aerospace and engineering field, and so I want to speak about this. I have a very good anecdote over here. And I know many of you are, from just looking at your background, you're probably coming from a similar field and you have similar questions. And you probably see a lot of job postings saying that, like, oh, minimum junior aerospace engineer or junior mechanical engineer requires 5 or 10 years of experience. And my anecdote for them is that the median age of SpaceX was 29 and Tesla's 30. Why is Tesla the most valuable company, most automotive company in the world, and SpaceX going to Mars? If you think that experience is so necessary, why are you being outcompeted by these companies? And the reason why is that it takes a lot of experience to do things right, but it really takes an innovative mindset to do the right thing. And in the post-COVID world, doing the right thing is more than important than doing things right, because your customer value has changed. So you want to do the right thing for your customer rather than do it in the most optimal way possible, which is most industrial companies are, they say, oh, we streamline our processes for the last 30, 40 years. This is why we are 5% better than you. But then Tesla says, oh, I'm just not going to build gasoline cars. I'm going to build electric cars because that's the future. I may not be streamlined in building electric cars, but that's what our customer wants. That's what the world wants. So and that's why they're the most valuable automotive company in the world. Back to you, Peter.
All right. Well, thanks, Winston. So let's get into it, guys. I want a big question that a lot of you were asking for when we asked for the questions when you were doing registration is, what skill sets do I need? What is 5 years of experience? How can I, how do I get a job after university? So I wanted to share this slide with you, and I think this is going to be a lot easier for people. These are more of the soft skills more than hard skills, but I'm going to share both. The next one, this slide, is going to be more hard skills. But this is something that Winston and I were doing research on before we came to McGill and actually started teaching at the Masters of Management and Analytics. And we asked a bunch of companies, what does 5 years experience mean? And it was really, really, really fun to actually get their fate. Like everyone was just going over, like, I don't know, 5 years experience means 5 years. So we had to do a lot of research. And when we got to it, it was this chart. Of course, we had to make a matrix because we come from a consulting background. But I want to just explain this to you quickly. So a lot of people were saying, well, what 5 years experience means is that they understand what is their brand. So that's why we said, so the short and individual is the brand recognition. What is your value? Who are you? How can you do self presentations? Can you stand up and articulate a thought, even if it's complex, in a very simple way? I apologize. Can you customize your own career development? Can you find out your own personal competitive advantage? This is actually quite tough, but this is something a lot of people want the individual to take care of, because a lot of businesses don't really take care of. They want you to take it and take control of your future. Another thing that they look at is business case construction and KPI definition. A lot of university students do not know when they don't know how to ask for money to do a new idea. Normally they just wait till the manager lets them do a new idea. Actually, in the job, if you can ask Winston, you can ask Lauren, you can ask myself, or even Steph, and even Abdel. Actually, when you have a new idea and you've been there quite a long time, you actually make a PowerPoint presentation. You go to your boss and you say, hey, I would like to do this project. I'm going to need 2 resources. I'm going to need $500,000, and I'm going to need this. And I'm going to pay you all back within a year and make you 10% IRR to make sure we cover it. That's normally how it's done, and we don't teach that. But so these are things that they want people to know. So you can just take these notes, you can take a screenshot, and you can research, you can ask questions to us later on. KPI definitions, so key performance indicators. So the definition of key performance indicators. So behavior in a company only shifts when they're measured. So I always make the joke with my students, if I say, every time I make a sound and you act like, you start acting like a monkey like this, and I give you $500, trust me, every time you have that sound, you're going to start acting like a monkey and want $500. When we reward you for something, you guys, most people act. And that's one of the things that we want to make sure. But so I'm over exaggerating just to make a point. But how do you make it where people are actually using your tool? Whether you're in sciences and using your research, whether it's in marketing and using your brand recognition, whether it's in finance using your financial analysis, you have to make sure that you're hitting the KPIs and the metrics for your team and for the organization. Also, the next one is implementing and planning and project management. Especially in today's world, agile project management is a really big thing. Some people don't really know what it is, but they keep asking for it. Another one is waterfall. I'll be honest with you, you kind of have to mix the two. So you have to CFOs normally cannot have a hard time approving budgets for projects when it's in a agile methodology. So they make a high level waterfall, and then you make the actual team work in agile. So there's 2 different ways that you want to look at it, and you can look at this and you can get registration certifications on PMI. PMI is the group that you can get your certifications from. Another thing is scaling value with your team or working in cross-functional. This is what Winston and I were talking about. There's no more, I work in engineering, you work in finance, we don't talk together anymore. When you work at a corporation and you're going on the job market and you're trying to work on the job, you actually have to be working with different people with different skill sets. So when I normally come to a new corporation, I look at the SIPOC like I was telling you before, and I say, okay, well, these are my suppliers, these are my customers, great. And then I go onto the team and I network with them a lot, understanding what are their needs and how to make their lives better. These are something that's really, really intuitive and really would help you getting the job. The last one is, so the last chart, so we have understanding root cause analysis. So for engineers and science, this is great, understanding how to ask questions, getting to the root cause and not just taking high level, facilitating solution adoption. A lot of, especially in AI or anything in tech, I don't want to say it's easy to make the tech, but it's a lot harder to make people who don't understand the technology to use it. That's why design is so important right now, and that's why Apple takes a lot of the edge, because they're so good at design right now, as much as I hate Apple. Going into it as well, stakeholder management and organizational politics. No matter what, there's always going to be this. Every organization has politics. I want you to be aware of it. I'm not going to lie to you. You have to understand what people want and how people are going to position themselves to take over what they want. And stakeholder management is, you have to understand what they want in the project, what they want from your job, and how to deliver that value. And without it, it's going to be really hard to get the job or to move up. And change management is just changing the culture. That's normally very advanced, and we normally save that to the end, and that's why it's in a different color. So these are kind of skill sets we want you to understand in a soft skill. These are things that you can go on Coursera and on other websites to learn, or you could even come to, if you want to come to the master's program, we'll love to teach you as well. This is what we teach in the master's level. So I'm going to continue. So now we're going to talk about skills of the future. I'm going to be very, very just basic right now. So if you want certification, please go to Coursera and EDX. Now, I'm going to explain why. The main reason is Udemy and Udacity do not have the brand recognition behind them like Coursera and EDX does. So when you want to put something on your LinkedIn, when you want to put something on your, on your CV, you need to have a big university or a big corporation behind that certification, or it doesn't really do anything. The reason why that is no matter what you want to believe, when you get a new job or you get a job or you get a promotion, it's all about trust. Where you went to school tells someone how much they should trust you. What degree you have is how much they can trust you. What certificate you have is how much they can trust you. Who your friends are is who they can trust you. It's always about trust. And that's how most people get jobs. If the hiring manager trusts you and you add much more than the other person, you get the job, whether you like it or not. And that's a subconscious thought that they have. For learning though, I like Udemy and Udacity for kind of like I'm going to call it hacks, even though it's not really a great word, but they always have these weird tricks that, universities and big institutions don't really look at. And those are really cool to look at, and they're like $10. So for a $10 hack that you can actually utilize is great, but you would never brag about how you did that course. So I just wanted you to kind of compare to understand what we're doing here. But the baseline skills for the non-technical people, if you're technical, you probably already have them. But for non-technical, you need to have SQL. Please pronounce it as SQL, because if you pronounce it as SQL, they'll kind of know that you don't know SQL. Excel, you have no idea how much data is still on Excel. Even huge corporations, I hear every day it's saying like, oh my God, we're going to advanced analytics, but most of the data is on Excel. Excel is still mandatory, and I would even tell you to even get a certificate on Excel to just get that trust like we were talking about. Python and R is also great. Python is more high level, R is more statistical analysis. Knowing both is never a bad thing. And Microsoft Power BI and Tableau for visualizations. So like I was going, why? Well, you want to pull data with SQL, you want to process and model the data with using Excel, Python, or R, then you want to visualize the data with Power BI or Tableau. This is the basics of any job or anything in today's world. Doesn't matter if it's business, engineering, or anything. Data is now king. Everyone is trying to shift the data, whether it be, I know healthcare, I'm talking to Merck in healthcare, I'm talking, we have Autodesk in design and in engineering, even the days of Pratt, everyone is just using these basics. And if you're coming out of school, you need these basic tool sets. Go to Coursera, EDX, Udemy, Udacity, they all have all the courses on these. These are like very, very popular courses. So that's kind of the high level aspect, but because that we give you our slides, we also have this thing that I found on Coursera. I don't know if you can read it, but I'll try to go over it quickly. These are just 5 slides about financial services, telecom, tech, professional services, and manufacturing. Understanding what is the data on Coursera and how they're using it to learn these skills. And I want to share that with you. So when you look at it and see how you're trying to position yourself using what we talked to you about this course, saying, okay, understanding the SIPOC, understanding your customer, getting their requirements, understanding how you can give value to them, and then seeing what kind of courses do you have. So A/B testing for sure is one of them. If you're going to be giving one solution or another, you want to probably test it. Tableau software is right there. We just talked about predictive analytics. You have so many different kinds of analytics. You have descriptive, diagnostic analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics. You have the full suite. I want to make sure everyone right now, I know I just probably spoke like a different language to many people. I don't want you to think everyone's at predictive analytics right now. The average corporation in today's world is maybe just above like descriptive. People are still looking at past data to make decisions, and I don't want you to think that everyone's like Google in the prescription and predictive area. So like I said, you still have Microsoft VBA, Excel VBA here, and we can go on cloud computing. If you are more technical, I want to just talk about that. So we have like APIs, computer architecture, cloud computing. One thing that we're not teaching, if you're technical on the call right now, look at Docker and Kubernetes for bins for the backend. We don't teach that in McGill at all, and that is a huge thing that a lot of people are trying to get involved right now, especially going on cloud architecture. So please look at that, and user experience. If you are on the business aspect or want to be kind of a hybrid, understanding user experience. If you have a background in psychology, user experience is your bread and butter in a technical way. It's just paramount for you. And even business model canvas, please Google what a business model canvas is. I tell all my students at the Masters of Analytics to use that even for job interviews. It's a one-page document that just explains everything about the job. Just try to fill it in halfway and use it during the interview to help the recruiter give you the rest of the information. And that's one way to kind of work as a team and see how your mindset flows. And that's something that we lose a lot in technology. So please, I'm going to send this to you for everyone. Like I said, I have 5 pages, and I really want to get to Q&A because the conversation is so broad. I know you have a lot of questions, and I would love to answer them more than just trying to guess what you guys want. So, but we looked at a lot of the questions and one last thing. We looked at a lot of your questions. A lot of people were asking how to use LinkedIn, how to reach out to people, how to do networking. We did do a lot of these conversations in our last presentations. So Kay and Abel are going to share those videos with you after the event, so you'll be getting an email. I think that will help you for the future, and we're always here for questions even after the presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Winston. So let's dive into the Q&A now. Peter, I'll let you moderate, and perhaps we can start off with Lauren. We're getting a lot of questions just around the topics that you've presented. So the first one is primarily around certifications. What are the type of certifications that are most valuable today? What's the process about going about listing them on LinkedIn, on your resumes? And do they really matter? So let's start off with that. And then Peter, I'll send you the questions to moderate the panel.
Awesome. So Lauren, let's start with you. We need some Lauren up in this.
And coming from consulting, certs are definitely a topic that we talk about all the time. So it's a great question. And I'd say approaching this, one of my biggest pieces of advice that I actually want to express in this meeting particularly is, and even heading into certs, is I think one of the biggest things that's missing in the market that's going to help you so much in guiding your upskilling journey is being able to communicate technical, difficult concepts in a way that can sell, in a way that business can understand. And it is so missing in the talent pool in general. And so I'd say when you're approaching certifications, think about where your strengths are now. If you're in project management, for example, there are lots of project managers out there. What kind of certifications could I get that might be a little bit more on the technical side? Maybe I could look at Coursera and see They have a machine learning like boot camp. You know, what could I do on that side to make me a little bit more technically inclined? And then on the flip side of that, if I'm, you know, more technical, what other routes could I go? Even things like Toastmasters, you know, how can I best express myself in a way that's going to make me just more marketable as a person? So in terms of certifications, I work in consulting. We do love certifications. Again, it really depends on the role. But I'll give an example. I'm doing a lot of networking in general right now during COVID, and I saw a woman who had done project management for many, many years. She decided to take a break during COVID, and now she's focusing exclusively on getting certified for AWS, so cloud computing. And I don't have a role open, but I was like, I need to talk to this person because this is directly related to, you know, my business and also, you know, where I think the market is headed, especially for Canada and Quebec. So for me, that was a huge red flag in a really positive way. So I would say in the consulting world, it definitely makes you billable and makes you more marketable. But it also shows you that, you know, shows the market in general that, you know, you're taking that time to learn and you're taking it really seriously. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Thanks for your answer. Yeah, Winston's coming. I was coming to you, Winston. You don't have to put you up your head.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Peter. So I want to answer this in the perspective is that what would I tell my 20-year-old me, right? If I had to like give a call to myself 10 years ago, then because I have the same exact questions as you guys in terms of certification. And the way I look at this is that I know. By the way, I just want to say that I did present that. I said you should not focus on certification, the means to an end, but rather the way you should look at this is that certification helps build your brand. You don't want to over certify. You don't want to become a stamp collector. You know, like there's always this guy on LinkedIn who has like 7 3-letter acronyms behind their name. That you don't want to become that. You want to say, I came in this package and then I'm missing that. I'm strategically getting that. I want to show employers or companies or business partners that I'm improving myself. And then you want to sort of articulate that story. And then you can say, this is why I got that 3-letter thing in my name. Rather than, oh, I want to certify on 12 things, that kind of thing, right? So I think approach it that way as sort of a pillar of your brand, rather than you know, which one's the hottest thing in the market I have to certify right now, right? That kind of thing. Because otherwise, like I mentioned, you become a commodity. What commodity means that you're indifferentiable to anybody else, and then people go to the lowest bidder. And you cannot compete in that environment. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna add one thing before we go to the next question is also make sure you look at job descriptions that you're interested in and then look at certifications. Because if you just take certifications because you think that's the hot thing on the market right now and then you go to apply and it's not available, there's no value to that person. So I just also want to add that in. So looking at it, how do you learn about upcoming technology and certifications to keep abreast? Okay, so a lot of these things, by the way, are about certifications. I just want to let you know. So all the questions are about certifications. So I'm happy I said which places they get certifications. How do you guys keep in touch with upcoming technology and certifications, and how do you make sure you're still competitive in the job market? So, you know, Lauren, up to you. Let's go. You're first always.
No, that's a great question. And again, I'll revert back to sort of what I was saying, which is, and what Winston alluded to, which is, you know, being more of a generalist rather than just a specialist. And again, I think that if you can, you know, supplement, it really depends on where your current skill sets are. But again, just looking at that example of the project manager and now she's moving into this tech, even myself, I'm trying to learn cloud computing because it's just going to help me do my job better. But you know, I think that it really depends on where your skill sets are and not focusing too much on getting like 10 certifications in the same thing. I think it needs to make sense, and it needs to make sense for your personal brand. What do you stand for? Where are you putting yourself out there? That was what Winston alluded to as well.
Once you wanna chime in?
Yeah, so maybe yeah, I just want to add a little bit, and I want to start with the quote. And then the quote I always want to say is that in theory there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is. What that means is that certification teach you a lot about theory, experience give you a lot of practice. Both are important in the sense that if you've been in a working place in a little while, without the theory, it can be very overwhelming and doesn't give you structure. But if you just have a lot of certifications, for example, if you get PMP without being experienced as a project manager, you wouldn't even understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a complementary thing, right? Like I always say that if you have to pick one, I would go for the experience, because you would not, like, the PMP is meaningless without the experience. And you don't have to necessarily certify as a PMP to get, because there's a lot of project management courses out there, online or in person, that doesn't give you a certification, but you can get that structure. It's also cheaper and faster as well. So you can demonstrate that to your employee. You don't have to get that. Again, PMP is a sticker. It commoditizes you. It's not, don't get it unless you're sure that is for you.
Yeah. And to add on that, I know I've had hiring managers and employers who don't like evangelists. And what that means is maybe they have 3-4 certifications in project management, or they're an agile evangelist and they've studied it a lot, but they haven't really done, agile coaching or Scrum. This is just an example. And that scares hiring managers, because again, it's just theory. And if they haven't applied it in a real, setting, in a professional setting, then it's a little scary for hiring managers.
Yeah, and it's similar to what I was saying before, right? If you are only taught agile methodology, project management, but you go to a CFO trying to do your project with just agile framework, they're gonna be like, you get out of my office. So and that's the thing that we want to say, guys. But you guys answered the third question, because the third question was, how do employers value certifications compared to work experience? For example, I don't have a certification for a PMP, but I have working experience as a project manager. So I would just probably jump in and just say, it depends on if you have the ability to sell it. So if you can somehow share that experience, that's great. But the hard part is going to the right stakeholder and getting their person's ear. And I would love to just see what Lauren, what you think about that, and then I'll move on to Winston.
Yeah, I totally agree. Honestly, if I absolutely had to choose between those two, I would choose the experience, just because it proves that I know that you've done it here, here, and here, and that you've seen multiple ways of doing things and that you can adapt. Again, in consulting, like, you're more billable with those certifications, but like, as a rule of thumb for me, if I see PMP but you've never done project management versus somebody who's been doing it for quite some time, I'll take the experience.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask the second question for you, Lauren. How would, as a recruiter, actual on the job, how would you want someone to sell their experience for you if they don't have this certification? What would they do to get their attention?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, look, I've seen this kinds of different environments, and I know that I understand, the framework of going into project management and the steps that I have to take, and, what makes sense, but I also understand how to adapt according to the industry, according to the politics of the company, according to, what their realities are. And I've shown this by doing it here, here, and here, and here are the challenges that I faced. So that's kind of more music to my ears than coming in fresh with no experience and all of the certifications. And I've met those people before, and they don't impress me nearly as much. So
yeah, fair enough. So we got a question. You want to add? Sure. Sorry, Winston.
Yeah, definitely want to add. I think in addition to what Lauren said, I think by the way, I want to just share a little secret with everyone. And the secret is that how do you impress or resonate with the interviewer, right? And you know this when you talk with your friends, people love to complain and gossip. They're like, oh, and so like this thing's so bad, that product's so bad, like this, like our country's leader is so bad or whatever, right? Like that builds relationship actually more than the good things. It's for job interviews, the way you want to show experience is to say, have you experienced this problem? Is this your biggest pain point? Isn't that terrible? And then your hiring manager will be like, oh, you have no idea. This is so painful. And then you sort of segue around this. You can say, hey, I dealt with this before. I solved this kind of problem before. Slightly different setting and whatever. And all of a sudden you're still brainstorming on how to solve the hiring manager's problem. And then whatever your certification experience, number of years and whatever goes out of the window, it doesn't matter anymore. Because first of all, like what Peter was saying before, trust. They trust you. They're like, this guy knows or this girl knows what I'm feeling, what I'm living every day. And then second, they might have an idea. That idea doesn't have to be good. I mean, they're thinking about it. So they might say, okay, your idea might not work here, but I like how you think, and that stuff, right? So then it's a different level of conversation rather than say, I have 5 years experience in project management. I manage this project, blah, blah, blah. And then the hiring manager is like, okay, that's just a shopping list for me. How does that apply to me? That kind of thing. So I just want to share that with you. It's a little secret of mine.
Winston just gave some real advice right there, which we always love Winston for. So Q2 guys, so do you recommend business students to earn a certificate in all tech skills, or is some practical experience enough? So I think we already talked about that, but I think the business students in general, so by the way, I'm sure that you guys haven't noticed, Winston and I are co-founders on the same company. Winston and I are the complete opposite people, raised, upbringing, and everything. Okay, he's an engineer, I'm a business student. When we met, we spoke different languages pretty much. It was just like it went really bad. But I won't lie, the best thing I ever did was actually listen to Winston and just understood how he spoke and his engineering knowledge, and vice versa. So I would probably just say it doesn't even have to be a certificate when you're a business student. Already the schools are so siloed of business school, engineering school, and even in the engineering school and the business schools, you guys are siloed, and I'm in finance, you're in accounting, we still don't speak. So if you can actually just speak to other people that you go to school with and just be like, hey, you're an engineer, I want to work at an engineering firm, let's have a coffee chat. It's very easy. And you get to learn each other's sides, and you get to play that customer experience, and it's something that's very interesting. Just wanted to chime in on that. Winston, you can go next.
Yeah, I want to just add, this is like, I think the question is like, if you have a non-technical degree, whether it's business or otherwise, how would you pivot yourself into the tech industry or the tech domain? And I want to add is that, like this is something that Peter and I just like kind of presented in your discussion as well, right? It's that what the world is missing, and a lot of the tech companies are doing, is something called UI UX, which is user interface and user experience, and how that's very intangible, right? There's an artistic and design aspect to this, and also culture, humanity, and all that stuff, right? So as business students or art students, you guys have that understanding that engineers don't. The thing is that, like Peter said, you just have to learn how to speak to the engineers, and so you become the translators, which Lauren has alluded to, is that those kind of people are really valuable. Is that like for me, I came from the engineering side into the business, but you can go the other way. And people do this. Like people either come from the business side, go into speak the engineering language, like what Peter's doing, or me, like an engineer pivoting out into the speaking business. And then once you have your feet in two worlds, then you become much more valuable, and people cannot commoditize you anymore. And then the recruiter actually seeks this kind of skills out, and so on.
Lauren, would you like to chime in before we move on?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I mean, it doesn't have to be like full-on blown certifications, I think, if you want to acquire some skills. But if you're dabbling in Python and you're a business student, or you've been working in strategy your whole life, like, I want to hear about that. What did that project, was it a side hustle? Like, what'd you do? So I would definitely ask further about
that. So what is the most valuable skill you should develop in tech, or the hardest skill for recruiters to find today? I think we're kind of breaching it, but we'll let Lauren go first, but I'm pretty sure I can read her mind.
Well, it depends on like how you interpret this question. Are you already in tech and you're looking to?
Let's be concrete with it, Lauren. Like right now, what is Slalom having a hard time finding?
Oh my gosh, cloud tech.
Oh yeah, cloud architecture.
Like, I'll be honest,
sure.
guys. Canada and Quebec in general, we're behind on emerging technology in general. And the United States has a much wider talent pool. Europe has a much wider talent pool. I cannot find people who understand the engineering and the architecture behind this. And actually, most of them came from France, is the talent pool reality here. And so that's where we're moving today. And with COVID, it's only making that activity greater and that need greater to move to the cloud. And so many companies don't know how to do it. So I would say that. I would also say having an understanding to some degree of change management, which is in such hot demand right now. Change management is understanding how do we embrace this new technology. If we're going and doing a cloud migration or we're implementing something new, the amount of times that you could do that at a company and they spend millions of dollars and then they don't even touch it, you have to like sell it from the beginning and have them embrace it and have them champion it. And how do we make this a mindset and culture shift within the company? And tech people take on that role sometimes, often actually, just because there aren't enough people out there, but it is a full-time job. And there are courses out there on how to do that. And I think that if you're if you're a technology person and are able to also facilitate in that, oh my gosh, you're on fire.
Mm-hmm.
So, Wesley, you want to chime in, since everything Lauren said except for cloud was on our quadrants, so it's good.
Yeah, I mean, my new job is building cloud platforms, so yeah, I agree with everything there. Yeah, and I think cloud architects or solution architects in general are misunderstood field, and then they're very much in demand. Another thing, like I already mentioned before, UX is becoming more and more in demand.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're really hard to find.
Yeah. Product managers are also well in demand. Yeah. I think Lauren, you mentioned another thing about change management, so I just want to build up on that a little bit. Especially after COVID, there's a special, I would say there's an increase in urgency in change management, not only in incremental change management, but business model change management. I think, how do we make money? How do we create value? Those things are, especially for traditional industries, those are very scary and very unknown for them. I think those are sort of like, just to be realistic, those are sort of more senior roles. But once you get in there, it's a really rewarding kind of role if you're into that kind of stuff. Yeah.
100%.
Hey, Peter, I just want to jump in here. So Lauren and Winston, thank you for outlining that, because we're getting a few questions along the same vein. So Lauren, you identified cloud engineering, cloud architecture, change management. As Winston mentioned, this is also part of my job, what I do. But I'd love for both of you to perhaps dive a bit deeper. For someone, say, who does not have any experience with these specific fields and specializations, where do they start? What do you recommend based on your own experience in your career and your network of people who've been successful? If you want to just walk them through a journey, I think that'd be really valuable for our attendees.
Yeah, definitely. We have entry-level people in my company, or people who have been there for years and in senior roles. Cloud tech, it's a very abstract concept and it's tough to grab. I've been taking classes, you guys. I've studied political science, and oh my God, it is hard to wrap my head around this. But we're starting with practitioner exams, like to kind of get on your way to sort of being certified. And again, I know we're heading back into certifications, but being able to understand the basics first, and even just showing that interest and getting on that learning train, for me, is a huge win, just because the talent pool is so small. So again, that woman who did project management and now she's moving into the cloud, like, even if it's just one exam or she's dabbling in it now, like it's so key. So I would start there, just really learning the basics and take a look at the practitioner exam.
Yep. Listen.
Yeah, I think maybe I just want to sort of give you guys a sense of how my own career developed, and maybe that'll give you a sense of perspective. But just keep in mind that this is several years in the past, and the technology as well as sort of the world has changed, right? I actually started in a traditional aerospace engineering company called Pratt & Whitney. That's where Peter and I actually met. Back then we were doing, I was in particular was doing building IoT analytics. Back then, IoT wasn't even called IoT. It was just getting data from some hardware in the field. In our case, with aircraft engines, and doing analytics. And back then, I was thinking, I was like, who on earth would need this stuff? It's like data's emerging field. There was nothing called business analytics. We don't know about AI. And one of those days, when I went into my manager's office and he gave me a stack of papers, he's like, "Oh, read these." And I read it and came back and I said, "Hey, is what we're doing called Internet of Things? Is that what it is?" And he's like, "Yeah, it is. That's what it's called." So I think the moral of the story I want to tell you is that where you want to start where there is no path. In the sense that then by the time when there is a path, you're already ahead. You don't want to start when there's a path and then you're just following everybody else's footsteps. Yeah. And I would and this sounds like very fluffy and fuzzy, right? But in hindsight, it's kind of true, right? I would look at the next big thing, like. I know like some people are saying, oh yeah, the sort of the data analytics is already kind of here, everybody's doing it. What's the next big thing? I want you guys to sort of think about that. What is the next big thing? And start there, maybe. This is sort of like an out-of-box answer, and maybe this isn't for everyone, but I just want to sort of throw that out there for you guys. It's an unconventional answer.
All right, I'm going to disagree with Vince. This is going to be one of the few times we do that. But honestly, if that's where you guys are and you want to see where to start, Abdel, for everyone listening, I would look for someone who's dying. So brick and mortar retail, dying. Aviation, dead. Like pretty much anyone who's on life support, who's just bleeding out, and like anything you do makes them live a little bit longer, is a great place to learn. As sad as it is, my reaction, example is if you see a guy who just got bit from a shark and he comes into shore, you're not a doctor. But if you look around, there's no one who's a doctor. Try to do something, right? And if he survives, there's going to be a parade for you and everyone's going to remember your name. And if he doesn't, well, ambulance is going to come and say it's not your fault. So look for companies that are really, really in trouble right now. Have them try to learn, because they can't hire. They don't have the budget to hire Winstons. They don't have the budget to hire all these high-tech people that Lauren's looking at. They can't even compete. Okay, and then you go there and you learn, and then you pivot out. That is as blunt as I can really be with you, everyone on the call, is go to a company that no one really wants to go to, learn, get a paid certificate pretty much, and get out.
Yeah, actually, I think Peter, maybe you summarized it better than I did. I think I was going to combine these two ideas. Is that use Peter's advice in terms of going to a, I would say, like quote unquote backward or sort of dying place. Because,
legacy.
Lauren's polite. It's dead.
yeah. Because in sort of like a decline or dying place, you can try out a lot of things. And then what I meant was that you can try out all the new stuff there. They won't do it very well. For example, if you go to, won't name any company, but like, just say like a very traditional manufacturing company and build cloud, they're probably going to screw it up. And but the thing is that you're going to learn a lot when you screw it up. And cloud, there's no path right now. Like when I say there's no rule book, there's no path, and then you learned a lot of new things. You know how you can fail, how you can succeed, what the organization really needs, and what they don't have. Then you can pivot out. And then when the rest of the world develop a path, you can say, hey, I actually survived in a place with no resources, no expertise. Now, if you go into a organization that has them, you can just magnify everything. And then that's how you sort of I would say, accelerate your career if you want. Yeah.
Okay. So Abdel, I know you want to let some people go, but if anyone wants to stay, so Abdel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can continue for about another 10 minutes or so, Peter. So I'll let us continue then. We still have a few more questions.
All right, no problem. We're just going to continue through. If anyone has to leave, we know we're over 7, but we always try to give an extra 15, 20 minutes. We know it's, if you've been on the calls before, we always go extra because we want to make sure we answer all the questions. One of the next things I want to know is for someone with a non-technical degree, again, it always goes there, with no experience, who is having a hard time finding a job during COVID-19, what is the best skill set I should develop for me to find a job? So I got my answer, but let's go to Lauren first.
Oh gosh. My best advice, I'm Peter, and I'm sure you'll answer a different way because my answer isn't like learn XYZ skill. Answer would be, and I did this, guys, I graduated from arts and I graduated not knowing what I wanted to do. And I actually saw a career counselor and he told me to make a list of my own personal values and what makes sense. And for me, it was, security. It was actually more quality of work over quantity. Like I'm not very data driven and all of these things. And so I started, and I kind of fell into this. But my best advice would be to, guys, you're probably really young and you're coming straight out of school, and it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? But look more inwardly into what your own personal values are. How risk averse, how not conservative are you? How, what are you intrinsically motivated by? Understand what kinds of companies match those values and what you stand for. Take a look at those roles, not necessarily what's open right now because it might not be a lot, but go take a look on LinkedIn. Like, what are those people doing? And then what are the skills that those people have, or what are the job descriptions asking for? Doesn't have to be super technical. But that would be my best advice in terms of where to start in terms of job searching. But I hope that's helpful.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Winston.
Yeah, I think that definitely is what I found to be true over time, Lauren, as well. It's like you want to align your who you are at a personal level, both values as well as your risk tolerance, as what kind of experience you want to get with the company, right? I always say that companies have a life cycle just like a person, right? A person's young, they don't know what they're doing, and they grow older and they mature and they become professionals, and then later on they retire and they die. Right? Companies have that cycle as well, right? What I'm saying is that you want to join a company at the same stage as you are in terms of life. Because what I found out is that Peter and I work for a very I would say old school company, and you just find that the risk tolerance and the idea I would say the urgency, the need for innovation, the need to change the world isn't there. So fundamentally, there's a mismatch in values. You want to go into a place where the company is at the same life stage as you are, and mature with that, right? And I think again, this is all kind of abstract for someone who just graduated out of school and it seems philosophical. But your first job might not be ideal. Like obviously just take
trial and error.
And I not know this, right? But the thing is that just keep this in mind. And in 5 or 10 years, you're gonna get there in terms of who you are and what kind of company you're looking for. And that the sooner you get that, the sooner you can also present that during your interview as well, right? It's like I'm so surprised when people. Well, by the way, I'm also have experience interviewing other people, right? I'm so surprised at how many of them don't know the vision of the company that you're interviewing with, because that's such a huge sell. Say this company, your mission is this. I did this similar thing in the past. I believe in the same thing, and that will just give you bonus points as well, more than anything, because nowadays companies are looking for that sort of value alignment. Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna answer a little differently. So one, I like what Winston said. Your first job is probably not ideal, especially during COVID, guys. Definitely, probably not. What I would say, if you actually learn the skills, especially if you have a job that's not really technical, any job can become technical. And I think that's something interesting I want you guys to think about. any job that's non-technical, especially if they made the process of that job in a non-technical way. If you learn just basic skills, you can make that 40-hour day, 40-hour week become 20 hours. I assure you. Okay, as long as you're not like on the call. Like if you're on the phone, like just answering phone calls, maybe not, but unless you want to make a bot for that. I guess you could. But anyways, we won't get into that.
That exists now, by Peter.
Yeah, it does exist technically. Anyways, and what I'm trying to say is that. So going back to what we were talking about, I want you to think of when you get your first job, is you're an entrepreneur, it's your company. Okay, and I want you to shrink, understand what the customer wants, and shrink your hours to where you can do things that you want to do to give more value. And I think that's something that we were teaching our interns at Pratt a lot, and now they made their internships 20 hours, and then they started doing awesome projects for another 20 hours, and they were doing things that were unbelievable. Like there were some times that like, hey, where did that project go? And when we do our scrums wins, and we're like, yeah, our students are doing it. We're like, what? Like it was a really great idea and it was great fun. But for the skill that you guys should learn, and especially in a non-technical way, is gathering requirements. Learning to gather requirements is a skill. It's a not technical skill, and it's probably cross-functional nearly in any job you'll ever do. That's so important. So Lauren has to take requirements. Winston has to take requirements. I have to take requirements. Abdel has to take requirements. Everyone probably in this call has to take requirements from their mother, from their significant other, from somebody. Okay, and if you do it properly, you give a lot of value to the person you're taking requirements from. And I think that will give you a job much better. You can reach out to people, understand their pain point. Like Winston was saying, people like complaining. So if you reach out to people on LinkedIn, I want to work at your company, tell me what's hurting you. Okay, and then find one or two things that you can give value and sell it. That's how you get a job in COVID-19.
I love that, Peter.
I just want to add that the definition of a job is to solve problems, like either one problem or a set of problems. Gathering requirements is first step is to understand the problem of your customer, and you can articulate in the way that both you and the customer understand. By the way, a lot of time your customer don't understand what the problem is. They understand the symptoms, they don't understand the problem.
And that's why you have to keep asking questions.
So the biggest value over here is that because people say technical or non-technical, I see the world is binary. World is not binary, right? Like it's you have to, like, I think because some people are deeply technical. I think like they write like machine code. You probably don't need to learn that unless you are into that stuff. But you have to speak technical to a certain level to be effective, no matter which background you're coming from. And this is just like communication skills, right? You have to, you might also want to speak finance or marketing or supply chain operations, all that stuff. Same thing, you want to speak engineering. And then this goes ties into what Peter's saying, gathering requirements. The more kind of quote unquote ways of speaking and ways of seeing the world you can do. By the way, this goes to actual like real language as well, right? The more language you can speak, that this also adds value. Is that the more that you can do that, the more value you can create, because you're connecting people, you're making people understand each other.
Yeah, so, and you'll be able to speak those languages. The more people you speak with, that is just it. And don't be afraid to ask dumb questions in the requirement gathering process. I learned that the hard way for sure.
Yes. Yes. And always ask if they can understand, because you would be shocked at how many people do not understand something basic, and you're, oh boy. Next one, last question, guys, and then we'll sign off. Everyone says learn data, tech, AI, etc. Yep, everyone does say that. We're trying to get a little bit more into the nitty gritty, but let's keep going. I'm not passionate about any of that. Fair. What are other skills I can develop for a worthwhile career? Vince, you want to take this one on?
I think there's different aspects to look at this. Is that so I can sort of share about what because a lot of people want to make an impact in the world, right? These days, millennials and Generation Z, they want to make a positive impact in the world, and then one way to look at this is that how data, tech, and AI is actually helping you to do that. Maybe that will excite you a little bit, right? Because people there's two aspects, right? Is that one is that people want to enjoy the day-to-day of their job, the act of doing. That's important. The other thing is that people want to understand how their work is impacting both their company and the customer, the world in general, right? So that's also important. So two ways looking at this. One way, like I want to say that, like for example, I'll just give you a very concrete example, right? Autodesk is a software company. We are very heavily leveraging data and platforms like cloud and AI, all that stuff. But Autodesk is actually making a real world impact in terms of how people make things. Like for example, every car in the world except Toyota, what I'm told, I don't know why it's Toyota, but every car in the world except Toyota is built with Autodesk software. Every building you see downtown is like Montreal or any other city is built with Autodesk software. You know, the fact is that you can use AI to change how you design things and how you make things is like, you know, one of the values is that you're going to save more materials, cut greenhouse gases, you know, decrease construction time, so that in the real world, that's more housing for poor people, like less carbon going to the atmosphere, less material wasted, and less material extracted from the ground. All of that is real world impact. It's a huge impact in the world, and that may not seem like it when you're writing code in Python. That's what's going to translate into the world. And if you want to make a huge impact in the world right now, data and AI and cloud platforms are the way to do it because they scale infinitely. Versus if you go there, you can only help 10 people or 100 people if you try your hardest, right? But if you write a piece of code that's implemented millions of times, every time people use it, that's like infinite replication. So you want to think of it that way. So that's one way to look at it. The second way to look at it is say, hey, you know, like I just hate writing code. No matter what, that's fine too, right? You know, like in the tech world, there's and not just the tech world, in the world in general right now, people, like for example, UI UX designers don't write code. They speak to customers. They understand how the customers work. They empathize with them, right, and all that stuff, and they bring this back into the company. That's one way. That's in tech, but that's not in coding. That's very much a people job. And the artist job even, because they have to sort of draw stuff, like, you know, you want to think about UI UX design. So we actually have artists in Autodesk they have no tech background. They're artists. They make, and they have like artist portfolios, and they came in, they help us design platforms because we really want people to use them in the most efficient way possible, in which case that you're going to make the biggest impact possible because you want people to adopt. So I'm sure I didn't cover everything, but I just want to share those two angles.
Laura?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I graduated in arts and now I'm in talent acquisition. I have been working in like data and all this world for several years now. I do not want to go into data. I do not want to be coding. It is not my thing. But again, to Winston's point, I really see the value of what this brings. And so, you know, understanding it to a certain level only helps me. But I would say, to address that question specifically, what has helped me the most in my role has been requirements gathering is a great one, Peter. Clutch. I made a huge mistake in my first job recruiting for tech, and I was gathering requirements for the role, and I had no idea what the job was, and I didn't understand any of it. And they asked if I had any questions about the job, and I said no. That was the wrong answer, and quickly learned from there. But, and another thing, this is going to sound so fluffy, but building relationships and communicating, and it is just priceless. It's so invaluable, and being able to pull in the right people at the right time, and that's what makes the most sense for me. I don't think you have to go into coding and tech. I mean, definitely where the money is right now, but you can have a very fulfilling career leveraging a lot of other softer skills.
Yeah. So guys, I'm going to answer this really quickly. Whatever you want to do, like I have a friend who uses tech to make suits, literally uses computer vision to make people's suits. I have a guy who in the Middle East, he does people's dry cleaning using, you know, tech, and he got crazy funding. I don't care what you want to do. make a list of whatever you want to do, find the problems of where that industry that you want to go to, what are the problems, and understand how can you fix them. And if it's using tech and you don't want to do it, find someone who does know tech and lead them with your knowledge of the subject matter expert. That is just that basic. That's literally engagement management. That's happens all the time. But so on another aspect, if let's say you tell me, well, Pete, I don't really know what I want to do. My advice for you, and this is, I don't want to do it so, because it's kind of like harsh, but just write yourself right now, take a piece of paper, 2 pieces of paper normally, and tell yourself everything your 6-year-old self, everything they should watch out for in your life. You can't change it. Just tell them what you should watch out for. Okay. Whatever you write down in order is all your trauma in your head. Okay. And it's going to repeat over and over and over again. And then you can circle patterns and saying, hey, how can I fix that? And if you can make your subconscious and your conscious, and then what is your subject matter expert align and then hit that target, literally, I don't even have to pay you your work. Like, it's just a mental thing. And for me, that was HR. So just wanted to give you guys that. To me, was coaching people. And that's when you align that mission in your head. Literally, I took a huge pay cut coming to McGill, and I said that was my first client. I'm going to come to McGill. Took a huge pay cut and grew the company itself. It doesn't matter. You don't care about the money. You don't care about the thing. You don't care about what who's going to remember you. You just want to make that difference. And that's the best way I can tell you. This is how you do it. Fix your house. If you understand, Carl Jung, fix your freaking house, and Freud, and just get it done. And I think that's the best way I can answer it. It's like, it doesn't matter what is the problem. Technology is always going to help. And if you want to fix something, get it done.
Yeah. I just want to add to that, Peter, is that especially Silicon Valley, people, like Silicon Valley is spoiled, right? They live in the first world. They have all the technology. So in the sense that they have all the tech, but they don't actually know what the problem is a lot of the time. So they actually bring people in from more, like, let's say, more challenging backgrounds in, and then tell them what the problem is, because they want to apply these technologies in that aspect to solve the world's problems, right? So to the point of what Peter's saying is that there's a lot of coders out there or data scientists, out there that they know how to write code and then build these things, but they don't necessarily know where to apply it. But if you live and breathe a problem that you want to solve, all you have to do is get together with them and build a team, whether that's in a company or in a startup, in whatever form, even nonprofits and whatever, like incubator or whatever. Then you can come up with a lot of ideas, right? Because there's some people who want to build stuff, and there's the people who know where the problems are.
Yeah.
And you just have to, again, like going back to what we've been saying this all along, the biggest skill is to learn to speak multiple languages, in a sense that if you can speak data science, speak data engineering, speak and that kind of stuff, so that you can translate your problem the way that you feel it to something that they can build, then there's a lot of passionate people who will build it for you because they're looking for a mission.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it, Abdel.
Yeah.
Sorry I got emotional on the last one.
Yeah.
No worries, Peter. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, it's glad. It's that emotion is important, and it always carries through. So, wow, great session. So as we come to the end, I'd obviously like to thank all of the attendees for joining us. We hope you learned something valuable to help you navigate your career path. Just a quick summary of some of the main points I'm taking away. Firstly, the future of innovation is the convergence of disciplines. I think we're talking art, science, design, engineering. And as you start up your career or continue your career, make sure that you build your experience, your skills, your networks through a multidisciplinary approach. Peter and Winston mentioned, and Lauren agreed, Coursera and edX are great platforms for certifications, and building a baseline set of skills around data analytics is extremely valuable today. And when it comes to deciding what certifications, we got a lot of questions around that. Look at the job descriptions that you want, look at the profiles that inspire you, and help ensure that those can guide your path. Lauren mentioned this, extremely valuable. I see this every day at work. Learn how to communicate technical and business concepts. Practice that throughout your work experience and develop it further with relevant certifications. Lauren mentioned this, Winston agreed, so did Peter. Cloud engineering, cloud architecture, change management, for example, are difficult skill sets to recruit for right now. They are hard to find. So we shared a little bit about the journey on how you can build up those skills. Start off with basics initially with multiple online courses, then work towards certifications. Finally, on a personal note, to share some advice, I will add actually onto a quote that Winston shared, is that it takes experience to do things right, but it takes the right mindset to do the right thing. Being on this webinar, all of you already have the right mindset to continue your journey of growth, continue your journey of improvement. And that's really what it is when it comes to careers, when it comes to upskilling and reskilling, the topics of this webinar, when it comes to learning, this is all a journey. These should be lifelong endeavors. They're deeply personal. There's no one right answer. We cannot tell you what skill to go build up, what certificate to get. It's deeply personal to your life, as Peter passionately shared his own. So keep working at it. Use the resources available, including individuals like us. We're happy to help you. And we're sure that you will find a job. Even when you do find a job, keep learning, keep growing. Special thank you to our presenters, Lauren, Peter, Winston. Thank you all for being here. You can always connect with them and myself on LinkedIn to learn more. We didn't get a chance to answer all the questions. There's some that are more tailored to specific individuals, so reach out and we're happy to help as we can. Big thank you, obviously, to the McGill Alumni Association, to the McGill Young Alumni Board, to KDOS, and to Craig Daly for their support. Please follow our MYA McGill Young Alumni page on LinkedIn and other social media networks to learn about upcoming webinars. A follow-up email will be shared with you, which will include today's recording and slides and contact details for the speaker. So thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Stay safe, stay healthy.